What's up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Vegas 16, and have a decent card here. I think it's going to be a lot easier than the last one. I mean, last week, like, it seemed like all the underdogs were winning, so the winning lineup had like so much salary left over. But yeah, this card's a lot more straightforward, a lot more easier there, and yeah, pretty solid card. I'd say a lot better from a name value standpoint than last week. Should be some fun fights as well, and yeah, really looking forward to it. So before we get started, if you guys can leave a like on this video, it's always very appreciated, and subscribe if you have not yet. Again, always appreciated. And with that said, we're going to get into the video here. And starting with the fight does not go to decision lines. And last week there was a like minus 500, minus 600 fight doesn't go to decision line. It was that heavyweight fight, Porter versus Parisian. And that fight ended up going to the distance, which was very surprising there. But yeah, I think a couple of these fights on here should definitely finish. Starting with this one, John Alon versus Roman Dolidze. And yeah, I like Dolidze a lot in this fight. 8,700. I actually bet the guy already at like minus 175. He's like minus 200 and something now. So a lot of people are definitely seeing what I'm seeing. And yeah, the dude's a beast. And I went on his Instagram and I saw that he was like a world champion in grappling. And then you don't really see it much in his fights. Nobody tries to take this dude down. He's got a couple of submissions earlier in his career, but mostly you just see him, yelling and screaming at his opponent. This dude is an absolute madman, and he has a lot of power as well. And I do expect him to probably get a knockout here on John Alon, who Alon went out there as a big underdog against Mike Rodriguez his last fight. Ruined a lot of lineups. I remember Mike Rodriguez was like 9,400 or something crazy like that against John Alon. So I do remember that vividly there. But yeah, Alon has been submitted 3 times. I do think there could be a situation where Dolidze does submit him if this does hit the mat. And Dolidze does have a 100% finish rate. So being this is the fight that is most likely, just based on the odds, to end it to the distance, I'm going to have a lot on this fight. I really like the price on Dolidze. And Alon's not a bad play at 7,500. I think for him to win, he's going to have to get takedowns here, which, I mean, could be playing with fire, going to the mat with somebody like Dolidze, who I do believe is dangerous on the mat there. So going to have a lot more Dolidze than Alon, but I'll have a little bit of Alon there. Getting into the next fight here, and yeah, this fight should definitely finish here. Cody Durden versus Jimmy Flick, and Durden seems to be a really popular underdog this week, and I guess I can see why. Watching tape on Flick, like, the dude does not like being hit. He covers up. His striking does not look that great. But the problem with this is, I think this fight's going to touch the mat. I mean, in most the Durden fights I've watched, and pretty much all of them, the dude goes for takedowns. A lot of his fights do touch the mat. And I also saw a fight where Durden was taken down like 4 times in one round. And if Flick is able to get on top, I think he's going to have a ton of success in this fight. Or even if Durden takes down Flick, I do think Durden could be playing with fire down on the mat. If Durden could keep this standing the whole time, I do think he has a big advantage. I just see this fight touching the mat, so I actually like Flick a lot here at 8,500. The dude's very, very dangerous. Don't believe Durden has ever been submitted. He's been submitted once. So he's been submitted once. He's never been knocked out. Flick has been knocked out 4 times. His chin's very questionable. And if he was fighting a really good striker here with some power that would want to keep this on the feet, I'd probably fade Flick here. But I do see this fight hitting the mat, whether it is Durden going for takedowns or whether it is Flick going for takedowns himself. I think he can get him. Flick has some solid wrestling, I believe. So, yeah, Flick has finished 87% of his wins by submission. So very, very dangerous on the mat. Both guys have a really good finish rate. Durden, 90% finish rate. So, yeah, I definitely see this fight finishing. I do like both sides. Durden's not a bad underdog whatsoever. I think if he keeps it on the feet, he could maybe find a knockout. But I'm really looking for the Flick side here. But definitely going to be playing both sides in this fight. I think it's a very important fight as well. I think it scores very high, especially with a small cage. Next fight, we have, Jean Vellante versus Jake Collier. And, yeah, 2 guys that I faded their last time and 2 guys that lost. Collier went out there against Tom Aspinall's last fight, got knocked out in like less than a minute. And then other than that, Vellante went out there against Maurice Green, and he looked good. And I believe he knocked down Maurice Green, and Green was able to pull off a submission off his back. Vellante was very, very tired. He tried to get the finish, could not get the finish on Green, and basically just, I don't know, it was weird. It was a weird submission. Nothing was even locked in. Green was just like holding on to him, and Vellante tapped. So yeah, man, this is such a tough fight to call, and a fight that You want nothing to do from a betting perspective, but on DraftKings, we do thrive on playing these really ugly fights, and it's probably a fight that is more than likely going to finish. And I'll be honest, I want to see the weigh-ins before I put too much stock into this fight. I want to see which guy looks better at weigh-ins. And, Collier looked awful at the weigh-ins last time. Vellante looked awful at the weigh-ins last time. I want to see if anybody made any adjustments from their last time out. Is anybody, training for this fight? I don't know. It really didn't look like it. So I want to see the weigh-ins. If Collier comes in here, looks a little bit better, maybe I'll lean more to him, play more of him. If Vellante looks a little bit better, I'm leaning to Vellante either way, but I do think the weigh-ins are important. And, Collier is someone that used to fight, I think, like 170. So the dude weighed in like 264 his last time. Very tough fight to call, very ugly fight. Going to be playing both sides. That's what you got to do in these ugly fights. You got to play both sides. Heavyweight fight. We saw Parker Porter last week. I think it was like 7,300 in a very ugly, sloppy fight. I mean, you got to play both sides here. So not the prettiest fight to target by any means, but I do think it's going to be important. Hermansson versus Vettori. Minus 195. Fight doesn't go to decision. So the problem here is, Hermansson's been knocked out quite a bit of times. He's been knocked out twice. But Vettori's not really a finisher. He's finished 13% of his wins by knockout. He's not really a knockout guy, and he's not going to go out there and submit Jack Hermansson unless he really hurts him. So I can honestly see this maybe going to decision. As crazy as it sounds, if there's a finish, I think it's probably going to come from the Hermansson side, and we'll talk about it a little bit. I am leaning towards the Hermansson side for a lot of reasons. I think the more experience is on the Hermansson side. I think that Hermansson, if he's able to get on top, he'll have a massive advantage. I think the 5 rounds favors Hermansson a lot because Vettori's never been 5 rounds, and even in Vettori's 3-round fights, he slows down a lot. So I'm really curious to see how Vettori looks outside of the second, third round. If it gets extended to the 4th and 5th, I'm really curious to see how he looks because we've seen Hermansson go into the 4th and 5th round. We've seen him look fresh, look good there. So you actually like Hermansson a lot more than Vettori, but yeah, it's a close fight. It really is. Could Vettori go out there and knock him out? Sure. Hermansson's kind of on the chinny side, so I will be playing both sides. The lean's going to be Hermansson for a couple reasons. I think if there's a finish, it's more likely to be on his side. I think that he has the better cardio. I like that. He's 8,000 compared to Vettori at 8,200, but this is a fight you're definitely going to want. 5 rounds, I can see it being extended. I can see a lot of volume from either side. So yeah, give me Hermansson there, but I will be playing some Vettori as well. And then Jamal Hill versus Ovince Prue, OSP here, and very tough fight to call. I like that Hill throws a ton of volume, but OSP's still dangerous. He showed his last time out that he's still a very dangerous fighter. I think that if OSP was smart, he'd go for takedowns here. I think if he went for takedowns, he'd have a huge advantage. Just he doesn't really do that as much as he probably should. But really, I think if he gets one takedown, it could be getting very sketchy for the Hill side. Overall, this is a fight I do want to target both sides because I can see OSP maybe getting a takedown, maybe finding a submission. Or on the other side, I can see Hill landing a ton of volume, maybe finishing OSP. So I do want both sides of that fight. So getting into the core plays, Ilia Topuria, 9,000. I just think this is going to be a very action-packed fight. We saw his last fight against Yusuf Salau. This dude, Topuria, he's a beast. He's an underdog against Yusuf Salau. Looked fantastic. Dominated a lot of that fight there. And I think this is a solid matchup, I guess, against Damon Jackson. I think the winner of this fight is going to score very high. Topuria, very, very good wrestling. I think he can take down Jackson at will. I don't see this playing out on the feet much. The only thing is, stay safe out of the submissions from Jackson. And we did see Topuria slow down. Mind you, he did come in on that fight against Salau short notice, but maybe Jackson can get another comeback victory like he did in his last fight against Bektic. So Topuria, I like it a lot. I like the price at 9,000. I think there's so much upside here. Just stay out of the submission, he should win. But at the flip side, we'll talk about Damon Jackson a little bit. He's definitely a dangerous opponent. So this fight's going to finish either way. I can't see this fight really going to decision, honestly. Just with the styles of both guys, it's hard to see it not scoring well as well. So yeah, Topuria, I like him a lot at 9,000. Hermadilidze, 8,700. Yeah, I like him a lot. Definitely a core play here at that price. I think there's finish upside, finishing 100% of his wins. I think he is the superior fighter here against John Alon. Alon's coming off of, he popped for steroids, I believe, against the Mike Rodriguez coming back. Curious to see how he looks on the scales there. But Dilidze, the dude honestly looks legit. He really does. Undefeated guy, 8,700. I think there's a lot of upside. The only concern for me is he is low volume. So if he does not get that early finish, it could maybe not score well, but I do think he's going to get that early finish there, whether it is a knockout or a submission. Luis Smolka, 8,300. It's a very interesting play here, and I'm putting Smolka as a core play because, I mean, it's not the prettiest play in the world. It kind of reminds me of the Paul Craig a couple of weeks ago, that it's really hard to trust him. It really is hard to trust a guy like Smolka, especially him coming in overweight his last fight. The last time this fight was booked, which was a couple weeks ago, and then him having to pull out of the fight due to, what was it, weight cutting concerns, or he got sick or something. Something happened, but that is very concerning in its own right. But Smolka, if he wins, he's going to score high. I mean, 88% finish rate. The dude's going to throw a lot of volume. The dude's a killer. Quinones, if he wins, he's probably going to win a decision. Maybe not score all that high. He's not really a finisher. Quinones with only a 40% finish rate, which is lowest on the slate. So the reason Smolka is a core play for me, because I do think if he wins, it's going to be probably low owned. I mean, I see a lot of people hating on Smolka here. First fight of the night. I can see him getting a submission if Quinones wants to take him down. Maybe Smolka goes for takedowns, and he is more dangerous on the feet as well. I don't think Quinones is that good. I think he can maybe win a decision, but I just don't see Quinones scoring high, and I think that if Smolka wins, he's going to score high there. So, yeah, I like Smolka as a core play. Probably not like a cash play or nothing, but I do think I'm going to have a lot of them for tournaments. All right, and then the final core play, Jack Hermansson talked about it a little bit. I think the 5 rounds favors him. You know, honestly, I was going on the Vettori side at first, but watching tape on Vettori, his takedown defense is really good. His get-up game is really good. His striking is really good. His striking's improving. I think he's going to have the advantage on the feet. I just think Hermansson could possibly get him down or even extend this fight. And once it gets past the 3rd round, like, Vettori slows down a lot in that 3rd round because he goes after it. He goes after it really early, and he does slow down. I can definitely see Hermansson taking over, maybe winning rounds 4 and 5, maybe round 3 is close. But if Hermansson gets Vettori down, I think he's going to have such a big advantage. I do think he is eventually going to get him down. Hermansson has really, really good ground and pound. I think he's going to wear him out here. But yeah, Hermansson 8,000. I like it. Core play. Stack and cash. Probably I can see this getting extended. I can see a ton of volume from each side. I can see a takedown from a Hermansson or two, some advances. And yeah, like if Hermansson gets this down on the mat, Vettori's going to be in big, big trouble. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value on Hermansson here at 8,000. I'm kind of surprised that he's an underdog. I was actually expecting Vettori to be an underdog, so that's a little surprising in its own right. But yeah, I like Hermansson as a core play, but we'll have some Vettori as well. Getting into the tournament plays here, the GPP plays, Jamal Hill, 8,400. We've seen OSP hurt a million times. We've seen him knocked out twice. Hill does carry some power. We saw it his last fight. He throws a ton of volume. The only thing I'm concerned about is if he gets taken down. What happens then? Probably not good things. And we did see him get taken down 6 times by Darko Stosic. This is such a big step up in competition, man. I mean, going from Darko Stosic to Klidson Abreu to OSP, like, this is a big step up. So we will know soon if Hill's ready for the step up, and I don't know if he is, but I do see past the victory where he scores high, and I do want a share of this fight, no matter who wins this fight. But I think Hill's fine as a tournament play there. Wouldn't play him in cash or nothing like that. Same thing here, Jimmy Flick. It's hard to trust the dude. Really suspect striking defense. The dude shells up. The dude's been knocked out 4 times, kind of on the chinny side. Is Cody Durden one to test that chin of Flick? Maybe. I just see this fight hitting the mat one way or another, whether it is Flick getting takedowns. I think he can. He showed some really good wrestling, and we've seen Durden, I've seen Durden taken down many, many times on tape. I saw him get taken down like 4 or 5 times in just one round alone. And if Flick gets on top, I mean, Durden's going to be in big trouble. If Durden takes down Flick, he can be in big trouble. Flick is really, really good on the mat. So I do think this fight hits the mat one way or another, and that's why I do like Flick a lot as a tournament play. Marvin Vettori, 8,200. Yeah, if he can keep this standing, this is his fight to lose. I think he's going to be throwing more volume. I think he's the better striker. Like the concerns, I mean, if it gets extended, the concern is him slowing down. The other concern is if he gets taken down by Hermansson. But yeah, if he can keep this standing for 5 rounds or maybe even find a finish on Hermansson, who is on the kind of chinny side, has been knocked out a couple times, yeah, I think Vettori's somebody I definitely want to target in tournaments there. Sean Vellante, 8,800. It's tough to pay this price for this type of fight, but I do think it's important. We saw Jake Collier kind of just get hit and fall down his last fight against Tom Aspinall. Of course, that's Tom Aspinall, but we did see that Vellante still has a little bit something left when he knocked down Maurice Green. But 8,800, I think it's going to be kind of low owned. But as we always say, like these Heavyweight fights are something important to target because I do think it's going to most likely finish or just be very ugly and sloppy and probably go to decision. But I do think it's probably a little more likely that someone's going to get finished here, honestly. And then Gabriel Benitez, 8,600. Yeah, I like this play a lot just because of the style of Justin James. James is kind of a kill or be killed fighter. James is going to go in there and try to get that first round knockout. If he's not able to get that first round knockout, yeah, he probably does slow down. And overall, I think Benitez is the better fighter here, but he's going to have to weather a storm in that first round. The small cage does kind of concern me there. I do think Benitez probably wins. I think he probably gets a late finish. Yeah, and Benitez has some power himself, decent finisher. I don't think James has ever been knocked out. James has been submitted once in his career, but yeah, Benitez is a really good finisher. 82% finish rate. He has been finished 3 times himself. He's been knocked out twice. Lost by submission once. Not something I go to in cash, but I think it's a very good tournament play here for Benitez. Live dogs, Cody Durden, 7,700. If he's able to keep this standing, maybe he's able to knock out Flick. I don't know. I just see this going to the mat one way or another. If he's able to maybe survive the submission attempts, get on top of Flick, sure, I think he can do well. It's just, man, Flick is a beast on the mat. So I will have some Durden for sure because I do think if he can have the game plan of keeping the standing, he'll have a decent advantage here. Did not like what I saw from Flick standing, his stand-up game. But like I said, I see it hitting the mat at some point. But yeah, Durden's fine. OSP, 7,800. Huge step up for Hill, like huge step up. If he can go out there and get a takedown or two, like he'll have a decent shot of probably getting a submission. We've seen Hill taken down 6 times by Darko Stosic. He has like a 53% takedown defense. Like I said, OSP doesn't go for many takedowns, but it'd be smart for him to do so here. His striking looked pretty solid his last fight against Alonzo Menafield, but yeah, Menafield definitely did not show up in that fight. Hill's going to throw a ton more volume than Menafield did his last fight. So yeah, I think OSP is definitely fine. I think either way, this fight's probably going to finish one way or another, honestly. Justin James, 7,600. Yeah, so these are the plays we like targeting in DraftKings, the guys that are going to go out there and try to get that first round finish. And James is that guy. I mean, I don't think James has been to decision since, 2017, something like that. So this fight is probably going to finish one way or another, whether it is James going out there and getting the finish or whether it's him getting finished himself. And he said it in an interview himself. He said, someone's getting knocked out in this fight. And I really do believe that just with the style that both guys bring here, especially in the small cage. So James, you got to have exposure to him. I mean, the dude's a madman. He's going to go out there and try to get the first round finish. 7,600. If he gets that first round finish, he's going to be optimal. So I like James a lot there. Jake Collier, I mean, you see him over there. I don't know. I want to see the weigh-ins. I want to see if he made any type of adjustments. I want to see if it looked like he's been training in any type of way. Hard to put much stock into this, but John Vellante is someone who we saw him. We saw him quit in his last fight, get so tired that he tapped to just Maurice Green hanging on to him. So you got to look at some Collier here. Very ugly fight, but sometimes these fights are the important ones. So yeah, Collier, I guess we can look at it, but not the prettiest play in the world, but I do think this fight's going to be important. I really do. So Collier, but look out for the weigh-ins. I think we're going to a lot of things are going to happen at the weigh-ins this week, especially with this fight, a couple other fights, but that's a really important fight for the weigh-ins here, the Collier and Vellante fight. I think it's really important. Punt plays, I just have one here. I think that, don't really want to get into it, but I do think that Matt Wyman is alive in a way, but Damon Jackson is a pretty solid punt play here, 7,200. I think the winner of this fight is going to score high. I do see him getting taken down probably pretty easily. We saw him get dominated by Bektic for most of the fight until he was able to pull off a submission, but he did get Bektic in a lot of submission attempts that were almost finished, but Bektic was able to fight out of them. And yeah, maybe he can catch Topuria in something. Maybe he could. Topuria is still a very young guy. Damon Jackson's a very dangerous guy. Jackson has finished 95% of his wins. He's been finished in 3 of his losses. This fight's going to end inside the distance here. So, yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate this as a pump play at 7,200 whatsoever. Fades, Movsar Evloev, 9,300. The dude's just not a finisher. I mean, he hasn't finished anybody so far in the UFC, I don't believe. Only a 54% finish rate. Landwehr's a very tough dude. Landwehr's been knocked out once by Herbert Burns with that knee. Yeah, I don't see Evloev doing much to really pay off that $9,300 price tag. He's not going to get a finish, more than likely. Maybe he finds a sub or something. Probably going to get takedowns, lots of cage control, not many significant strikes, probably scores, 80, 85, maybe that. But yeah, probably not going to be playing much Evloev. I think he wins, but just not interested in it from a DraftKings perspective, really. The dude just does not score well. All right, and that's about it. So I do want to remind you guys that it is the first, at least when I'm recording now. Now's a great time to sign up on Patreon. You get a full month of my content here. You get full access to my model with all the stats for every fighter. You get my premium projections, my GPP lineup percentages, my DraftKings article, and access to Discord, over 200 members, and to Patreon. So sign up. Anything helps there. Really appreciate all the support. Had a really good month last month. Hopefully keep it going into December. Finish the year off strong. And yeah, so 3 really good cards this month, especially, the Chimaev fights off. That card that fights off a little bit, but that card as a whole is still very good. We have UFC 256 next week, so yeah. Now's a great time to sign up. A couple good cards to end the year here, and yeah, like I said, all the support really helps. And that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out, watching the video. If you guys can leave a like, subscribe if you have not yet, would appreciate that a ton. And good luck on Saturday. We got a pretty good card.